Parthaya pratibodhitam bhagavata narayanena swayam vyasena grahitam purana munina madhye mahabharatam advaita amrita varshinim bhagavatim ashtadasha adhyayinim Amba Tvam Anusandadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhagavadveshim. O Mother, Bhagavad Gita, I repeatedly meditate on you, who are the 18 chapters in the middle of the Mahabharata, composed by the ancient sage Vyasa, taught for the benefit of Partha by the Lord Narayana himself, the goddess, the shower of the nectar of Advaita, the enemy of rebirth. Revision. Krishna has revealed himself in chapter 10 as Ishvara. Consequently, Arjuna now addresses Krishna as the one who is the indweller of all, Purushottama, the indweller of all. He is the creator of all, Bhuta Bhavana, master of all, Jagatpati. Between verse 12 to 18, Arjuna has asked Krishna to expound his glories, to show his glories, because Arjuna wants to see. And consequently, Krishna gives over 80 glories to contemplate on, so that we can turn them into objects of meditation and to appreciate Lord. So it's not just a matter of listening, but the question is, what is something that I can make an object of my meditation that will be worthy of, or something that will inspire me to contemplate on the Lord, to hold Ishvara in my head, in my mind, throughout the busy life that we undergo. So between verse 19 and 39, 80 glories are shown. Now, how do these glories help Arjuna? First of all, Arjuna, like all of us, are conditioned to think earthly. Victoria Falls, we think about the sun, the moon, which is all great. So Krishna is going to help us to expand our vision past the earth-stuck mode. So this is going to help you with creative thinking, a little bit of outside our usual way of thinking. Also, it helps us to remove psychological barriers or psychological obstructions, like greed, competition, wanting to be better, jealousy. So the reason is because often if the person doesn't know that all of this belongs to the one, that means the one Ishvara, which is the indweller of all, Purushottama, then the moment we see someone with some skills of whatever nature that we think that we should have or that we would want to have, then instantly this mode of jealousy or competitiveness is going to come in. And this can be extremely agitating to the mind, and it can make the person cause low self-confidence and not such a pleasant time to live in a world, constantly going, excellent singer, look at the gymnast, look at the scholar, look at the teacher, look at the other students, and me, I'm just not like that. So we can start to really see that every glory that person has, it's actually your glory also. Because what is Ishvara? Purushottama. And what is Purushottama? The indweller of all. So this means the indweller of that person who is good at something is the same indweller of this person who is watching that good person. So this means that I can now, as a bhakta, start to rejoice in other people's glories, because they are my glories also. And we also clarified last week that when we say the word my, we have to be careful. It should not refer to the Omkara, to the person who likes to sort of claim these things, they're also my glory for my sake. No, we have to know specifically what this word my means. When we say my, we're talking about Atman, the one consciousness that is the truth of all beings, and that is Purushottama, the indweller of all. So this means the Vishwarupa Bhakta or the Virat Bhakta can start to really be happy and turn other people's discoveries as your own vibhutis, because the truth of you is Brahman, and all of these vibhutis are of Maya, and Maya is a power in Brahman. So we're hearing really our own glories. And then what's the outcome of this listening? Okay, so we're listening now. Okay, excellent. So what happens now? For example, just as a mom, well, she can never get tired of speaking about her child. Is that true? Yeah? And she never gets tired of seeing her child. Yeah. Now I know there's relatives, sometimes you just want to get a break, I understand that. But just generally speaking, you always want to see your child and you're always talking about your child. So in the same way, the Virat Bhakta or the Vishwarupa Bhakta, because he understands or she understands that the indweller of all is also the indweller of my very own being, then they never get tired of speaking about Ishwara's glories or thinking about Ishwara's glories. It's not like they have to or they want to because it's a sadhana prescribed in class. You know, just like a mom, no one has to tell her. She just loves her son, loves her daughter, so she naturally is invoked. She's naturally motivated to speak. It's not even motivation, it's just out of love. So in the same way, the Vishwarupa or the Virat Bhakta, when they speak, they have this voice of sweetness, this voice of devotion. And what is devotion? Remember 3 words? This voice of love, respect, and one more? Reverence. And reverence. So whatever they speak about the world, there's a certain tone behind their voice, and it's soft, and it's sweet, and it's delicate, and it's gentle. Even if it's something that is not pleasant, they still understand that ultimately, you know, this is still all form of the one. That means Purushottama, the indweller of all. Now some revision from last week. We spoke about sun and the moon starting. The sun is the glory which gives us light and life on earth. So if you think about, we eat plants and animals also eat plants. So the entire world is possible because of the one sun that shines and gives life to all. So that's why in the Vedic culture, the sun is the greatest symbol of the self, of the highest reality, because the sun never complains. Its nature is to shine. It doesn't do the shining, just the nature of itself is that which gives life to all. The moon is what gives us tides. And tides are very important for aquatic creatures, also for seasons. So when we combine the sun and the moon, they give us the 4 seasons, which can be almost equated to the 4 stages of... what would you compare Grahastha to? Which season? A householder? You got spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Yeah, summer, because Grahastha is hot. And then what would you compare Vanaprastha to?
Autumn.
Excellent, autumn. Why autumn?
Because that's towards the phasing out of the last phase.
Into winter, which would be?
Sanya.
Excellent. Okay, so we can compare the 4 seasons to these 4 stages of life. And the sun is the presiding deity of vision, both wisdom and also physical vision. In the same way, the moon is a presiding deity of emotions. So those who worship the moon can be asking, please help me to stabilize my emotions. Let me have stable emotions throughout my life in the ups and downs. So there are deities, Chandra Loka and Surya Loka also. We talked about Sama Veda. We said that the Vedas are the source of all eternal truths. They are non-negatable eternal truths. That means from whichever angle they're attacked from, or for whatever logic the person tries to destroy them, the Vedas cannot be destroyed. In other words, they are those truths which are evergreen. They're never obsolete. And the 3 Vedas, Yajur, Rik, and Atharva Veda, they are chanted in prose and poetry style, whereas the Samaveda is very sweet and melodious. It's got a musical tone behind it. We also said that the mind is a glory. And why is the mind a glory? Because the mind is faster than light. Light takes time to travel. Whereas if you imagine with your mind, instantly, thought is there. So the mind has the capacity to think, to experience, to love, to care, to like, to dislike, to calculate. In this whole world is just a reflection of the mind. So the mind is one of the greatest glories that we have in the universe that we're still trying to understand. That's why we have so many fields showing up. The field of psychology, the field of physiology, the field of brain, brain neurology. So all of these fields are popping up, trying to understand this glorious mind. The mind is either your best friend, if it's used in line with the Shastra. And what is a Shastra? Prescriptions how to use this complex instrument. Or it can be your worst enemy. That means if I don't use the mind, then the mind is going to subscribe to the senses. And what do the senses like? They always like to externalize themselves to sense pleasures, and thus the mind will follow. And then the person eventually is going to start to suffer because it's hard to get out of an addiction. Yeah. So this means the person from the beginning has to manage their minds. Otherwise, it's very hard to take control once the mind is already started to extrovert itself. Indra is the king of devas and devatas. What's the difference? Deva means masculine, that means gods. Devatas is feminine, that means goddesses. Also, Indra is the presiding deity of rain. So Indra can also be prayed to when we want rain. There's droughts, and there's a certain protocol in the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas, a ritual, and we invoke Indra. And then even the Native Americans in America used to do this very often. They used to invoke rain through a certain ritual. And also he is the presiding deity of ability to work. So if someone wants that productivity, that strength to continue working, that karma shakti, then there's another ritual to invoke the ability to work, karma shakti. So that's the revision of last week. Now let's go on to verse 23. Rudranam shankarashchasmi vittesho yaksha rakshasam vasunam pavakaschasmi meruh shikari namaham.
Among the Rudras, I am Sankara. I am Kubira among the Yaksas and Rakshasas. Among the Vasus, I am fire, and among the snow-peaked mountains, I am Meru.
Rudranam Shankaraha cha asmi. So we first ask, what is Rudra? Rudra is associated to removal of sorrow, to remove obstacles pertaining to personal growth. For example, I want to expand, so you remove those obstacles, whether known or unknown, and then we pray to Rudra. There's 11 Rudra devas associated or followers of Rudra Shiva. And among these 11, I am Shankara. Shankara means the one who blesses, because Shankara is associated to Rudra, and Rudra is Shiva, and Shiva is the destroyer of whatever I ask to be removed. So this means whoever wants moksha, they will be invoking the remover. Because why? Moksha is removing ignorance. Therefore, I invoke Rudra if I want to have clarity of knowledge. Viteshaha yaksha rakshasam. So I am Kumbera, the presiding deity of wealth. Isn't Lakshmi associated to wealth? Wealth itself is Lakshmi. In other words, when we view Ishvara from the standpoint of wealth, then Ishvara is Lakshmi. However, here Kumbera is a presiding deity. In other words, the governor, distributor of wealth. To whom? To Yaksha and Rakshasa. And they are celestials. So Yaksha is the one who guards wealth for earth. For example, if you see in the Mahabharata scene where the 4 Pandavas have tried to drink from the river, and the Yaksha came and said, don't drink. And they all avoided this. And each one of them died. So what is the symbolism of this? By the way, that's why you shouldn't take the Mahabharata literally completely, because you don't have a person who goes, oh, sorry, I don't want to listen to you, I'm just going to drink water. And then another brother comes, oh, there's my dead brother. Before I tend to my dead brother, let me drink some water. And then 2 brothers, oh, 2 brothers dead. Hold on, let me just drink some water, okay? So it's very irrational if you start thinking like this. That's why this is symbolism. If you start to take Mahabharata literally, then so many problems start to come. And they all drank. So what's the symbolism of this? And they all died. In other words, as good as the Pandavas were, they were dharmic. The environment is more important than the person. In other words, who is a yaksha? The one who protects the environment, the wealth of earth. It is my duty to protect it. If I violate that, then I pay the price. Rakshasa is the one who amasses wealth via malevolent means, like cheating and lying. So what does it say here? I am the Kumbera, I am the distributor of wealth according to the law of karma for both the yakshas and the rakshasas. Therefore, never condemn wealth. It's just there to help you to get through life. So therefore, we don't separate or we don't put down wealth or any kind of riches. Because if you think about a person like Bill Gates, he can distribute millions of dollars and help so many children that none of us can actually ever come close to, right? So all of the billionaires and millionaires, they are vaishyas, you know, they play a certain role in society. So they distribute wealth and keep the society going. So in the same way, just like we don't condemn others, we don't condemn our own views towards money, because money is important for the sake of progressing through life. Asmi cha pavakaha vasunam. Okay, vasu. So there are 8 vasus, 5 elements, and 3 cosmic forces, the sun, the moon, and the stars. And this is mentioned in both the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad and Mahabharata in great detail. Among the Ashtavasus, I am Agni Deva. What's the symbolism of fire? Why do we boil water, for example? Yeah, to purify water. Why do we cook? Even cooking is a form of purifying the food. So whether we look at it relatively or in the absolute sense, in the Shastric sense, fire is always associated to that which purifies. For example, what purifies the ignorance of the mind? Fire of self-knowledge, Atma Jnanam. And also in the Vedic tradition, when we wake up, the first thing we do is we light a candle. Another thing to do is to have a flame, a candle in your room. Don't have one that smells, but have one that is just pure, because if you have a flame that's always, then it's going to tire out the senses. So just like if we're in a noisy place, then eventually the hearing gets tired and then it becomes insensitive to other sounds. So this is why it's important to keep a value-neutral house or environment, not to wear out the senses. Buy a candle and light it up and just have it next to your office, because it's good to focus sometimes. And you see this this fire that's alive, it's shining. Again, summary, whenever we have fire or a flame or a candle, then worshipping that fire, as long as you know why you're worshiping, not just bluntly, we're not talking about blind faith here, then we're asking for help in removing of ignorance, of whatever obstacles we like to remove. And then aham meruhu shikarinam. Among the peaked mountains, I am Meru. And some say that Meru is the mountains in the North Pole. There's Meru pilgrimage, or it could be Meru in the celestial world. Purodhasam cha mukhyam mam vidhi partha brahaspatim senaninam aham skandaha sarasam asmi sagaraha.
Parth, Arjuna, may you know me, Brihaspati, the chief among priests, among the commanders-in-chief, I am Skanda, and among the water reservoirs, I am the ocean.
Mukhyam mam vidhi partha brahaspatim. So know me to be Brihaspati, the chief among priests. So what is a priest? A priest is one who helps someone else to gain punyam in the future. For example, there's a priest that will marry 2 people. So in other words, the 2 people having an intention, they will call a priest. The priest will perform a ritual that is specific to the request. And then by the performance of that ritual, then it will help the asker to gain punyam in the future. Because obviously no one's going to ask the priest, give me a ritual that's going to give me papam in the future. So it's for the punyam, for something good. And then among the celestial priests, that means among the heavenly priests, I am above all, the number 1 in rank, which is Brihaspati. And who is Brihaspati? He is the guru of Indra. And we know how important Indra is. Last session, Indra is the one who is the king of Devas and Devatas, the coordinator of all other Devatas, including Agni and Vayu and so on. Senaninam aham skandaha. So among the army of gods, I am their leader or commander called Skandaha. Lord Subramanya, Kartikeya. It is in the south.
It's Subramania.
Yeah, it is in the south, yeah?
Murugan's, yes, Murugan.
Okay, good. So he's also the son of Shiva and Parvati and the younger brother of Ganapati. Yeah. Why is Skandaha worshipped? Because he's worshipped to help me remove any fears, any anxiety regarding anything in life. And this ability to remove fear is Ishwara's glory. So this is important to remember. If we start to pray to, for example, Skanda, please help me to remove any fears about my child, about my business, about my spouse, about my own health, then you have to know that this glory that belongs to Skanda is actually glory of Ishwara. And then, Sarasam Asmi Sagaraha. So among all the reservoirs of waters, we will say natural reservoirs. We can put man-made included also. I am Sagara, I am the ocean. In other words, you can worship any body of water as holy as it is, but remember, every body of water lends its existence from the ocean and ultimately goes back to the ocean. So whatever body of water we see, that water at some point has evaporated, carried over by the clouds, and fell back to earth and generated a body of water. What is the ultimate reservoir of water? The ocean, the one source from whence all comes. Maharshi nam bhraguraham giram asnyekam aksharam yajnanam japa yajnosmi Stavaranam Himalaya.
Among the sages I am Bhrigu. Among the words I am the single syllable Om. Among the rituals I am the ritual of Japa. And among the mountains, the Himalayas.
Maharshi Nam Bhrigu Aham. There are 7 Maharishis. Remember we spoke about Brahmaji, Sankalpa, 4 earlier rishis and then 7 later rishis. So we're talking about these 7 later rishis now, the householders. And it says, among these 7 rishis, these Maharishis, I am the most glorious, Bhrigu. There's a story in the Purana where Bhrigu tests the 3 murtis. So he wants to see which one is the most patient. So then Bhrigu goes and annoys Brahmaji. Right? And who is Brahmaji? The creator. Now think about it, if you create something, you're like, I've done my job. I did what I had to do, just leave me alone now. I've created you, stop annoying me, right? It's only because I created you that you can annoy me. But Bhrigu still annoyed Brahmaji, so Brahmaji lost his temper. And then Bhrigu goes to Shiva. You know Shiva, he's the sweeper. Yeah, you don't even have to say anything to Shiva, he's already angry. Right, because it's just the aspect of creation, it just wipes everything away. So Shiva definitely lost his temper. And then Bhrigu goes to Vishnu. Who's Vishnu? The sustainer of creation. So who is Vishnu? When we view Ishwara from the standpoint of sustenance, like right now, we call Ishwara Vishnu. So we are experiencing, this is Vishnu, the aspect of Vishnu. So Bhrigu goes to Vishnu, who was sitting next to his consort Lakshmi, and then what does he do? He kicks him in the chest, in front of his consort Lakshmi. Now imagine that, someone kicks you in front of your wife, you know, and you're like you're holding the entire creation. That's how important your role is. And someone kicks you. Unheard of, disrespect. So it was just total silence, right, in the hall. It's like, how can this be? We've never seen this kind of behavior. Now what does Vishnu do? Do you think he got angry? No. Vishnu says, forgive me. My heart is hard. Forgive me if I have hurt your feet. There's symbolism in this. What do you think it is? Someone kicked Vishnu. Vishnu is a sustainer. What came from Vishnu? Forgiveness, understanding. Forgive me. My heart is hard. My heart is strong. I don't take this personally. How many times, in how many generations do we say all sorts of things about Lord? All sorts of things. We curse, we even speak the wrong knowledge about the Lord, who Lord is not. We even make money from the Lord, create these big institutions. And Vishnu, the ultimate forgiver, I give you another chance. In other words, what is this? Unparalleled compassion. In other words, nobody is born knowledgeable. So therefore, nobody knows everything. So for that reason, I have compassion. I understand. You are not born with all knowledge. So because you don't know, I give you another chance to improve, to make a difference. Therefore, what is Ishvara? Ultimate forgiveness and infinite compassion. Whereas human beings today, we say one wrong word or one wrong sentence, end of relationship. So what can we learn from this? Think of Vishnu. What it means to have that strong heart of compassion, of forgiveness. I give you, what is forgiveness? I give you another chance. You may have done it because, of course, this is a test, Bhrigu was not doing it intentionally, but it's to show us symbolism. I give you another chance to improve, to look over what you have done, so that at some time in the future you may improve. Imagine if Ishvara was not like this. Moksha would be impossible, because Ishvara would be like, you're now doomed to eternal, whatever they say in religion. Yeah. Bhrigu wrote Bhrigu Samhita, and he is a master astrologer. So if you read the Bhrigu Samhita, you will be able to see the future of all beings. That means it's a very complex, sophisticated astrology book. And there's Bhrigu readers in India who will ask you for your time of birth, your place, and the date. And then they will use a Vedic calculation on that number, and then they will take 27 to 40 Sanskrit stanzas from the Bhrigu Samhita, and based on those stanzas, they will tell you about your education, about your spouse, about your children, about your parents, about any curses that are unresolved from the last life, and how to potentially navigate life to ease out some past life karmas. Or we also have the Bhrigu Prashna. The reader tells you to ask a question about anything in life that you want to know about. How long am I going to live? What's my path in life? And then what happens is you put your finger on a certain square with a number on it. And I think, Rani, you've done this. Yeah.
No, I've done the thumbprint one with the past lives and future life. How many lives you've already lived and all that stuff. Yeah.
And also, the Bhrigu Samhita has an interesting layout, and it says that all people undergo drastic change in life. Year 22, so when you're 22 years old, you go through some drastic change. 24, 26, 28, 32, 36, 48, 60, and 72. Okay, so these years are something that drastically happens. Also amongst these years, there's also personal years where something happens at a certain age because it's pertinent just to your own karma. Giram asmi ekam aksharam. Among all words or sounds, that means words in all languages, I am the single syllable Om. Now, Om does not belong to any particular language. You can't say now Om belongs to Sanskrit and it doesn't belong to German. Om is a universal sound that consists of three sounds, A, U, and M. So if you put A, U, M together through Sandhi, you get Om. And this means that all words in all languages in the past, present, and future are thus wrapped in Om. Because I said that Om encompasses every single word and every single sound in creation. For example, when you open your mouth, what's the first thing that comes out? Ah. Now you say, well, where's the ah in zzz? Well, what is zzz? It's nothing but putting your teeth together and going zzz. But if you open your mouth, you go zzz. All words and sounds are modifications of this first syllable ah, in whatever shape or form, in any language or any sound that's even made. Okay, you understand this point? So any sound, even if you say, for example, oo, where's the ah in an oo? Well, oo is nothing but wow, wow, right? It's just putting your lips together and then it sounds like an oo. And when the mouth is rounded means there's a progression of the sound, then it makes the oo. And also when the mouth closes or when the final sound is concluded, then the is produced. Om is the most perfect name for Ishvara. Because what is Ishvara? All names and forms. Wherever there is a name, there is always a form attached to it. You don't have a name without a form, nor do you have a form without a name. Therefore, when we say Om, we have now included every single word, every single sound, every single word in the entire universe, in the entire Jagat. Thus, we say all things are wrapped in this Om syllable. And also, if you take the A-U-M, then this represents the three conditions of Jagat. What's the first thing that comes? A. So, A represents manifestation. U represents sustenance, and M represents resolving. That means dissolving back or unmanifest. And now we'll say, how do you now apply this as a sadhana? How do I use this Om as a teaching? What do we say about Aum? Manifestation, sustenance, and unmanifest. So let's take a word. And comes a certain sound, and the sound lasts for a certain moment, and then it goes into. And then another sound comes out, and the sound lasts for a certain moment of ooh, and then goes mm. So what happened? Out of silence, manifest. The manifest lasts for a certain time, and then where does that manifest go? It goes into that same principle, same substratum from where it arose, which is in the silence. In other words, out of silence arises the Ah. Ah is sustained by what? The silence, and the sound or the word goes back into. In other words, when all of the words and sounds are finished, what remains? What was always there all along. So in the same way, we say, out of Ishvara arises the world is sustained, and it goes back into Ishvara. And Ishvara is consciousness, Purushottama, the indweller of all. Where are all thoughts arising out of? You. And who is this you that we're speaking of now? Yeah, the self, Atman, the one in whose presence there is awareness, there's alertness. Ah, there's a thought that comes up. This thought is sustained by the self and it goes back into the self. So this means Om has two functions. Firstly, to discern between the three worlds, the three conditions of the world, which are manifest, sustenance, and unmanifest, and to use Viveka between these three conditions and the substratum, which is underlining all three conditions. That's the first one. And the second is Om is used as Jnanam, means to discover Brahman, that I am Brahman. For example, if we look at Mandukya Upanishad, this will be the entire teaching about the word Om. So Om is not only a meditation tool, but it's also a tool to arrive to the final reality. So therefore, we will now ask, why is Om important? Why is it the greatest word? Because it is the essence of all Vedas, and it is the essence of the entire universe. Yajna nam japa yajnaha asmi. So, among all spiritual sadhanas, I am japa yajnaha. Now, why does Krishna choose japa yajnaha as the one to glorify? The reason is because yajna, the japa, which I will explain what japa means, can be practiced by anyone at any time with any kind of education at any place with any gender, in any culture. That means there's no restrictions to practice japa. That means it can be practiced by any caste, a brahmana, a kshatriya, a shudra, a vaishya. It can be practiced by the stages of life. It can be practiced by brahmachari, grihasta, vanaprastha, and also by sannyasi. So it can be practiced by anyone at any age. And most importantly, when we practice japa, it involves no himsa to the environment or to the self, to the person. So himsa is injury. So for example, even if someone prescribes to you and says, go and do Surya Namaskara, then suppose you say, I don't want to, but you have to, right? Because it's so early in the morning. That is actually himsa onto yourself. Because that means sadhana has a certain expectation, and I don't know, it's too early or it's too late, so it's himsa. But also, every ritual in the Vedas requires a certain amount of expenditure of resources. So, for example, you will see so many flowers, get produced and so much material for people to put in the Ganga River. In other words, to use rituals, I have to damage earth. I have to actually hurt earth to perform a ritual. Now, we cancel this out with prayashchitta karma. However, even after I inflict damage on earth, then what happens? I produce waste. So every ritual incurs himsa to the environment in these two ways. What's the definition of japa? It means repetition of any mantra. Any mantra that is assigned or prescribed for a certain purpose, or that you resonate with. You'll just sort of feel attracted to this. For example, Om Namah Shivaya. Beautiful. And the person repeats Om Namah Shivaya. As long as they understand what Shiva is representing, then it's absolutely fine. Now, what does japa mean? There's two words, ja and pa. So ja is representing janma. Janma means birth. End of cycle of new birth. And pa represents papam. In other words, by removing all papa, how? Through japa, what happens eventually? I end the cycle of rebirth. Therefore, japa is that which removes papam. Why does it remove papam? Because my mind is where? Constantly on Ishvara. Therefore, my mind is not entertaining worldly things. So whenever we go out, we start producing papa. But because now we're immersed in this Om Namah Shivaya, we start to develop reverence, love, respect for Shiva. Thus, we're a lot less often outside. We're producing less papam. Therefore, through course of time, end of cycle of rebirth. Stavaranam Himalayaha. Among the mountains, I am Himalaya. Offers nature at its best. You ever been to Himalaya? Sometimes it's dangerous to go because of the landslides and big rivers. I went on a tour for 20 days, and I went once, and it's just glorious. It takes you see the magnificence of glory that world has to offer. It truly is the best that nature has to offer because it's so huge. It is an abode of, for example, sages. For example, Narayana, a place of holy lakes. Manasarovar. It is the place of holy places like Badarinath or Kedaranath. It is the place of holy rivers like Ganga, Yamuna, Brahmaputra. Now, what's the definition of Himalaya? That's why I didn't call it Himalayas.
Himakala, which is abode of snow.
Beautiful. Okay, so Hima snow,
Yeah.
Alaya, abode, the abode of snow.
Why is it there's so many holy places in the Himalayas?
Because it's been home to so many events, like it just draws people, and people find comfort there because it's safe, it's good to contemplate, it's sages used to be there, and like Chinmaya, he went to the Himalaya near Rishikesh. It's just been a place that attracts wisdom, and where wisdom has been like the center of. It's been a center of wisdom, of this Vedanta, of this Vedic culture.
It's so inspiring once you go there.
Yeah, it is inspiring.
You just got to go there.
Yeah, something just, whenever people go to Himalaya, then, they always report something, it was like life-changing. If it's not something finding someone of, it's just this very sight, the appreciation of this vastness of these mountains. Ashwatha sarva vrikshanam devarshinam cha naradaha gandharvanam chitrarataha siddhanam kapilo munihi.
I am the sacred ficus tree among all the trees. Among the celestial sages I am Narada. Among the Gandharvas I am Citraratha. And among the Siddhas I am the sage Kapila.
Ashwataha sarva vrikshanam. I am the sacred fig tree. The Peepal tree is another name for it, among all trees. The Peepal tree is also, or the Ashwatha, is called the Bodhi tree by the Buddhists because Buddha attained nirvana under this tree. So it's also worshipped by the Buddhists. Why is it worshipped by the Vedic culture? Because the Ashwatha tree is the abode of Trinity. In other words, what's the bottom of the tree representing? It represents Brahmaji, because the first thing that comes is the bottom. In other words, out of the first comes the rest. Therefore, if I worship the Ashwatha tree, the bottom part, I am worshipping the aspect of creation called Brahmaji, which is none other than Ishvara. Now, what's the center represent? Sustenance, right? Because it's the one part that just stays. It's reliable. And what does the top of the tree represent? What happens on top of the tree? Many, many changes. New leaves, new branches. You cut them off, new ones come. Seasons, right? Colors. In other words, represents change. That's why I say Shiva is not only destruction, but Shiva is change. Now, it's progression. It's that which allows progress to blossom, right? Without the change, then there's no blossoming of the fruits. In this way, worshipping the Ashwatha tree, now that you know, which represents the abode of Trinity, is representing or worshipping Ishvara. That means I am worshipping Ishvara's three faces. Faces of Brahmaji, of Vishnu, and Shiva. And also, in chapter 15, we will return back to the Ashwatha tree. We will be upside down. And Krishna is going to use this Ashwatha tree where we will use it as the tree of samsara. So we will change the context in chapter 15. So here we worship the tree as appreciation, a vibhuti of Ishvara, whereas in chapter 15, we're going to see this tree as something that people go through, Jiva goes through on and on and on. And that means the whole purpose is to get out of this process of rebirth. Also in the Vaidika rituals, the twigs for the fire, for the Agni, are from the Ashwatha tree because it's a sacred tree, therefore we use the most sacred twigs. And also there's a ritual, if couples want children, then they will marry the Ashwatha tree and its wife, which is the neem tree. So they will perform this marriage ceremony because it's supposed to be an auspicious ritual that produces healthy children with good karmas. You don't want a criminal being born, right? So there's a certain ritual, and it's very beautiful because, children in Vedic culture is not just about let's have children. It's preparation, right? Because we don't know what karmas are going to come, and so let's create the most successful potential offspring. Now, Devarshinam Naradaha. So among the celestial rishis, I am Narada. First of all, what does a rishi mean? Rishi means the seer of mantra. In other words, mantra drashta. Drashta means seer. That means for every mantra, there is a rishi. For example, the Gayatri mantra, Vishwamitra. So the Gayatri Om Bhuvaha Suvaha Tatsavitur Varenya Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi. So this one just comes, and there's a rishi for that. And which rishi received this Gayatri mantra? Vishwamitra. Among all these Maharishis, Narada is the most mentioned one. For example, in all 18 Puranas, Narada will be mentioned, and in most Upanishads, Narada is also mentioned. That's how great of a rishi Narada is. And what does Narada do? His purpose in life is to turn all minds towards Ishvara in very strange ways. For example, his devotees include Prahlada, Durva, Valmiki. Also in Chandogya Upanishad, Narada gains Bhuma Vidya. Bhuma is Brahma Vidya. In chapter 7 it's called Bhuma Vidya. What does Bhuma mean? Abundance, in other words, fullness. From Sanat Kumara. Now remember in lesson 18, I talked about the initial 4 rishis, and one of them is Sanat Kumara. Therefore, Narada gains knowledge from Sanat Kumara. He gains Bhuma Vidya. In other words, Brahman in chapter 7 is called Bhuman, which means limitless.
You mentioned last time that Indra is a position, so not
amongst the man, yeah.
So in the same way, is Narada also a position?
Narada is a rishi.
Okay.
Good question, yeah. So there's no Narada position, it's just Narada. Gandharvanam Chitrarathaha. Okay, first of all, who are the Gandharvas? They are citizens of Gandharva Loka. And what is Gandharva Loka? Suppose that you really enjoy dance, or music, or arts, or any kind of expression. There's a certain Vaidika ritual to perform, and then after death, the person goes to Gandharva Loka. In other words, the most exquisite, the most delicious and delicate forms of dance, art, music, poetry is in Gandharva Loka. And I am the king of the Gandharvas, known as Chitraratha. Siddhanam Kapilo Munihi. What are siddhas? The one with great powers. And how do they develop those powers? Through lengthy practice. So among the greatest of siddhas, I am sage Kapila. Now, before answering who Kapila is, there are 4 kinds of people associated to spirituality. Number 1, the ones who have siddhi, that means powers, but no self-knowledge. Number 2, the ones who have self-knowledge, but no siddhi, no powers. Number 3, the ones who have both. And number 4, the ones who have neither. Now, who is Kapila? The one who has both. Okay. It is not necessary to develop siddhis in order to attain moksha. Okay, this is in the yogic world. Sometimes there's some mistakes that people think I need to be special, I need to have some powers, and only then I can verify myself or validate myself as liberated. In other words, liberation has 0 connection with siddhi. And in the Bhagavad Purana, Kapila is an avatara of Bhagavan. In fact, there's a beautiful part in this section called the Kapila Deva Huti Samvada. Kapila, a young boy who is an avatara, like Krishna of Bhagavan, he teaches his mother Vedanta, self-knowledge. So if you read the Kapila Deva Huti Samvada, you could actually see what a young boy says to his mother to explain the truth of the entire universe. It will be very interesting to see the conversation between a mom and a son. Also, one point is, if you know the Shat Darshanas in India, the 6 schools, very important, as I will start mixing schools up. You will know that Sankhya, the sage of Sankhya, is Kapila. We're not talking about Sankhya. Now, I'm saying that because otherwise the person is going to say, oh, okay, so they're worshipping Sankhya philosophy. Therefore, now let me go and research Sankhya philosophy. So we're not talking about that Kapila. This is a different one. Now, how do you get siddhis? How do you get powers? There's 5 ways. One of them is through precious stones. The second is through plants or herbs. In other words, working with certain plants or herbs for a certain amount of time, backed up by a certain ritual, will also develop siddhi powers. The third one is through mantra. That means there's a certain prescribed mantra that's supposed to give you a certain siddhi, a certain power. So you take a mantra that is prescribed for a certain power, and you divide that mantra into syllables. For example, Om Namah Shivaya, which is Om Namah Shivaya. So 6 syllables, times that by 1 lakh, which is 100,000, equals 600,000. Therefore, you chant Om Namah Shivaya how many times? 600,000 times. And therefore, the power which is held in that mantra is expressed. Now, what's the philosophy behind this? If you look at a mantra is made, it has power. It's like an atom. So every time a mantra is spoken, a small release of energy is released. And that release of energy is supposed to give benefit to the one who chants the mantra. So if the person does this Purushcharana process, for example, 600,000 times, then it's like an atom bomb. You know, the power is so great that suddenly it releases in this huge, the fullness of the mantra is released. Now, energy has to go somewhere, yeah? Where is it going to go? To the one who chanted that mantra. So therefore, that mantra was pertaining to a certain siddhi, like putting, you know, a piece of paper on fire or something. Then that power is going to convert into the person's ability to exercise that siddhi. The fourth one is through yogic siddhi meditation. In other words, the person will use the power of concentration of their mind to focus on a specific region, like chakra focusing. This is very common in yoga. And through a certain mantra or a certain ritual, then they will slowly start to exercise that power associated with that region. Now, the fifth way, janma. What does janma mean? That means through past work. In other words, some people are born with extraordinary powers. You've seen this? There's a person called Raj Mohan. You'll see that he puts an electric current through his body, across his heart, and he can actually power an electric drill or any kind of electrical equipment that would instantly kill a person. In other words, a person is born with a certain power. Where? How? Because they have done the work in the past life, therefore they carry it into this life and they have a special power. And you're like, wow, how is this possible? So these siddhis, powers, is what science or biology cannot explain, but they're very real and they're very observable. And how are they developed? Through these 5 methods that I just explained. So what is a siddhi? Anything that you think that is extraordinary, and that you've seen an extraordinary act of something, that is a siddhi. The point is now not to go and chase siddhis, because suppose you can put a piece of paper on fire or transfer, 500 volts through you. You're like, so what? Okay, great, now what? So, Uchai Shravasam Ashwanam Vidhimam Amritodbhavam Airavatam Gajendranam Naranam Chanaradhipam.
Among the horses, may you know me as Uchai Shravas, and among the elephants as Airavata, born of the churning of nectar, and I am the king among men.
Amrita Udbhavam. So something is born of churning for nectar. Nectar represents, the name for nectar is Amritam, and it represents Brahma Vidya. In other words, the highest knowledge. Because what is Amritam? Always associated to immortality. What gives immortality? Brahma Vidya. That means knowledge of Brahman. There's a interesting story, another story in the Purana, where the Devas and the Asuras. Now, who are the Devas? Devas are the good people. What do I mean by good people? Predominantly Sattvic, next Rajasic, next Tamasic. Who are the Asuras? Rajasic, and then you've got Tamasic, and then you've got Sattvic. And who are the Rakshasas? Tamasic, predominant, Rajasic next, and then Sattvic very little. In other words, when we say Deva, Asura and Rakshasa, we're not talking only about celestials. We're also talking about the very people that we experience on earth. Okay. That's why Asuras, what we say last session, always battling for power. In other words, that's Raja Guna, always competitive. I want it for myself, and I don't, not for you, more for me. Okay. So there's a story in the Purana where the Devas and the Asuras are churning the Milky Ocean. What is the Milky Ocean representing? I'll say one word, the total cosmic form. But the milky, what's milky? What color?
The mind.
Good. What's milky? White. So in other words, they're churning the creation, which is pure sattva. So they're churning the sattvic Milky Ocean, which is the entire cosmic form, for amritam, for the nectar of immortality. They want to extract it. And they're using a churning rod called the Mount Mandara. Now, the Mount Mandara represents sadhana. And they're using the serpent, Vasuki, as a snake. So now imagine a big mountain, and then you put a snake around the mountain, wrap it around, and then the Devas are pulling on one side and the Asuras are pulling on the other side, and they're pulling, and they're turning the mountain like this. Now, what does the snake represent? The serpent, Vasuki.
It's meditation.
Ahamkara. In other words, what is the Ahamkara? The doer. So why is the doer churning the ocean, the milky ocean? Because I want something. I want amritam. In other words, there's a person who wants something, and that person is the very Omkara. And what are they churning it with? The churning rod, Mount Mandara, which represents sadhana. In other words, I am churning for immortality through my own doing, through my own actions. Through what? Through sadhana. In other words, I'm churning my mind through sadhana to extract Brahma Vidya, to extract immortality. And 14 things came out. One of them was a white horse, a beautiful white pure horse, which is Uchayshravas. And this is a horse which belongs to Indra. In other words, Indra, having a very important position, gets one of the best horses. I'll explain why soon. What else came out? Lakshmi, which is the goddess of prosperity. And Lakshmi is married to who? Vishnu. Now, what's the symbolism of this? Why is Vishnu and Lakshmi together? If Vishnu is sustenance and Lakshmi is wealth, what does this symbolize? That by aligning myself, by aligning my actions with Dharma, with what is right, I am what? I am gaining abundance. I am able to extract prosperity. Whereas if I don't align my actions with what is right, then I am not going to take advantage of Lakshmi because it is not in alignment with creation. It's not in alignment with what is right. What else came out? Halahalam. What is this? Halahalam. Poison. In other words, what does this symbolize? When a person tries to meditate in their sadhana, what's the first thing that comes up? Thoughts. In other words, the halahalam is the poison that restricts the person that's trying to genuinely apply sadhana to exercise the mind, to gain a sattvic mind, and all of these just thoughts start coming. In other words, all of these past experiences and papam and all these memories start to come. So this is something that we all share also, right? It's a constant noisy mind and we sometimes have a hard time disciplining it. Also, Brahma Vidya came. This is what they were searching. So they did extract the Amritam, and they initially agreed that they will share this Brahma Vidya between themselves. But the Asuras are what? They're power hungry. So obviously the Asuras took this Amritam for themselves and they wanted to keep it for themselves. So then Vishnu thought, well, this is not nice, we need to share amongst all. So then Vishnu transformed himself into the very seductive, enticing, alluring Mohini. She's impossible to resist. And Mohini came to the Asuras and obviously enticed for the Amritam. Please give it back. And the Asuras couldn't resist her, so they gave the Amritam back to Mohini, who is Vishnu. And what did Vishnu do? He gave it back to the Devas. So therefore, today we have Brahma Vidya everywhere. And this is actually a symbolism. Today even, we have people who try to take the Upanishads or the Vedic system and they try to put their own name onto it. And, they have these courses, 5 Day to Enlightenment, or the new system to discovering your full potential. And it's all taken from these eternal texts. So the person obviously does not respect the knowledge and they try to put it as their own. So there's a great symbolism here. That means we need to protect this and make sure that we know where this comes from the Vedas. So what's the symbolism here? Just like the Devas and the Asuras took a long time to churn the milky ocean through patience, in the same way, the person takes the sadhana by churning his mind or her mind with sadhana. What comes? Glories. What kind of glories? Jnanam, the ultimate glory. Brahma Vidya, discipline. Uchayshravasam ashwanam vidhimam. So now, among the horses, know me as Uchayshravas, who you now know. In other words, Indra's white horse, which also came out of the Milky Ocean. Now, white horse. Why white? White represents always sattva guna, purity. What does a horse represent? Okay, Indra is on a horse. That means a horse is a vehicle. And it's a white horse. So the vehicle is pure, representing. And who gets it? Indra. And Indra is in such an important position in the universe. In other words, my mind is sattvic. And what is the mind? A vehicle for life. In other words, I live my life through the vehicle which is sattvic. And then Airavatam Gajendranam. Also among the elephants, I'm the white elephant called Airavata, which also came from the Milky Ocean, which Indra also rides. Naranam cha naratipam. So amongst humans, amongst all beings, I am the king. In the Vedic tradition, the king was equated to as a representative of Ishvara, because the king's duty is to uphold and preserve dharma of the people. In other words, the condition of the society depends on the health or the purity of the king's state of mind. I'm not sure this is the case today, because today it's more like power, who's going to get power. So that's fine. And the reason for that is because we're in a different age, Kali Yuga. There's a cycle for everything. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.